News starts right now.
A man accused in a brutal attack on his own family appeared in court today. Stephen Clare, arrested in April for shooting his ex-wife and stabbing his 1-year-old and 11-month-old daughters. The youngest child died.
Clare made his first court appearance today since being indicted on 3 different charges in this case: capital murder, attempted capital murder, and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. The state and the defense met to talk about where they stand with evidence in this case.
Yeah, the big question is, will Clare face the death penalty? That's what the judge asked the prosecution today.
This case has not been submitted to our Capital Crimes Committee until we receive all the discovery, and then a decision will be made at that point.
That attack happened in April at a home on Robin Hood Place just outside Alamo Heights. An 8-year-old and 11-year-old were also inside at the time, and they escaped by breaking a window.
A judge revoked Clare's $3.5 million bond, meaning he is in jail and not able to bail out. Meantime, as one murder trial ended last night, there are 3 more underway.
Each case in separate courtrooms has witnesses and evidence now being shown to juries. Erica Hernandez gives us a look at those cases.
A domestic violence case is front and center in the 399th District Court. James Stewart on trial for the murder of his wife, 25-year-old Tiffany Washington, back in April 2020. According to testimony, Washington and Stewart were arguing over cell phones when she grabbed a knife and he grabbed a shotgun. As the argument intensified, Stewart told police the gun accidentally went off. While the trial began Monday, the state was still presenting evidence today, but closing arguments are expected Thursday. In the 186th District Court, Giovanni Benjamin is accused of fatally shooting 49-year-old Frederick Bueller outside an apartment complex on the south side in September 2020. According to police, Bueller looked around a corner of a building as people began arguing when Benjamin allegedly opened fire, killing him and injuring a second man sleeping in his apartment. The state is still presenting evidence in this case. And finally, in the 227th District Court, the Christopher Bustos trial began. Bustos accused of fatally shooting his ex-girlfriend's friend, 36-year-old Gumicendo Gonzalez Jr., also known as JR, in October 2019. While the defense chose not to give opening statements, the state laid out their case.
The defendant says to JR, "Where's my wife?" She's not his wife, by the way. JR says, "Who's your wife?" And this defendant starts shooting.
JR was shot several times in the chest and later died from his injuries. In all 3 cases, the defendants are facing 5 to 99 years or life in prison if they are found guilty. Now, these cases are expected to go on through the rest of the week. At the Kennedy Reeves Justice Center, Erica Hernandez, KSAT 12 News.
A man was looking for a woman's boyfriend, and then bullets came through her apartment walls. This happened just before 4 this morning at the West Pond Apartments on Southwest Loop 410 and Marbach Road. The woman says a man approached her door asking for her boyfriend. Then minutes later, she says bullets were fired into her apartment, missing her but hitting a water pipe. Her next-door neighbors thought they were being shot at.
Nowhere, it's just bang, bang. So I jumped off from my futon, recognizing the noise. Of course, it's a gunshot, so I kind of get down.
That neighbor also told us some of the bullets went into another apartment, almost hitting a 9-year-old child.
A new option on the way for people to safely surrender babies. After 2 people left a newborn at a church, we did a story about the Baby Moses Law, allowing a brand new law going into effect in September allows baby boxes at fire departments. Courtney Friedman tells us what may have pushed the law through and what needs to happen before those boxes are installed.
For years now, people have been allowed to safely surrender unharmed babies up to 60 days old to fire stations or hospitals. It's called the Baby Moses Law, and come September, it's getting a big legal update.
September 1st, Texas is going to be celebrating now that we can add baby boxes to fire stations.
Eagle Flight Advocacy CEO Pamela Allen has been fighting to get this law passed.
The baby box is temperature controlled. Once it closes, it locks. There's cameras, there's alarms, and and medical staff will be notified of that going off, and that baby will have a responder there to them within the first 2 to 3 minutes.
She said in the box will also be a packet of resources for the person who leaves the baby.
On our south side, when we've had a lot of incidences on the south side, and 78211 has a teen pregnancy rate of 59%, and we have our outreach center there, so I get it. And so we want to target those areas that seem to be more of a higher risk of having these incidences happen.
Allen's been lobbying for the boxes for years and believes the recent change in abortion laws fueled support since the need is now greater.
I bury abandoned and abused infants, and so one of the questions that were asked, are you afraid you might be burying more babies?
She has seen an increase in several parts of Texas, but not Bexar County yet, and she hopes the baby boxes will keep it from happening here.
To what extent, we don't know yet. That's something, we're still in the planning phase and looking at.
San Antonio firefighter Joe Arrington says the department first has to evaluate their fire stations.
Now, some of these fire stations are older, so they have to assess what type of infrastructure can handle these baby boxes. But Arrington did tell me it's likely that they will be adding them to all of the newly constructed stations in the future. Reporting from Fire Station 4, Courtney Friedman, KSAT 12 News.
Now, we did contact the San Antonio Police Department about the case involving that baby left at the church. Since they didn't leave the baby at a fire station or a hospital, they could be prosecuted. Police say there is no update right now, and that investigation is ongoing.
To Dallas now, where police there are looking for 3 people involved in the shooting of an undercover officer. Police say the suspect car pulled up behind that officer's car, and then a shootout began. They say the suspects drove off in the officer's vehicle, which law enforcement later recovered nearby.
Soon after that, an exchange of gunfire happened between the suspects and our officer. Our officer retreated for cover. As that gunfire ensued, the officer was shot at least one time. The suspect, at least one of the suspects, then entered our officer's covert vehicle, and both of the suspect vehicles fled the area.
That injured officer was treated at a hospital and has since been released.
Let's go to Austin now for an update on that brush fire in Cedar Park. Fire officials say the blaze has burned at least 50 acres, destroyed one building. But first responders are making significant progress here. Right now, the fire around 60% contained. It hasn't moved further since this morning. Cedar Park fire officials say the building destroyed was part of an apartment complex.
And this is getting a little scary because it can literally jump right over the road where I'm at. And my car is on a freaking rack. This is crazy town.
Yeah, that was a video from yesterday as that fire was breaking out. The Cedar Park Fire Department says there haven't been any major injuries, but 2 minor injuries have been reported.
So many parts of Texas dealing with dry conditions and the drought, and it's certainly no different for us here in South Texas, Adam.
Yeah, it's crunchy. It's crunchy. It's even worse a little north of us, and I'll show you the Texas A&M Forest Service fire risk map coming up in just a few minutes and show you the worst parts of Texas for the risk, but we are under a high risk around here. We did it today again. 106, the high temperature. Now that ties the record for the day set back in 1953. The average, of course, 97, which is the warmest average we have all year long. So climatologically speaking, this stretch here for the next week or so is the hottest all year, typically speaking. 43 100-degree days so far this year. Third place would be 57. Then, of course, 2009, we had 59. We're going to be back to talk about the rest of the state, how many other locations had records, how hot it was, a look at where the rain's going to be, and that fire risk in a bit.
All right, thank you, Adam. Trying to stay cool after school, a challenge as school lets out at the hottest part of the day. In fact, pediatricians say temperatures above 98 degrees can put children at a higher risk of cramps, heat stroke, heat exhaustion. That's why it's important to remind your child to refill that water bottle if they have one and hydrate throughout the day. Especially important to have a full water bottle before walking home. Doctors also say students should drink at least a cup of water every 20 minutes while walking home in the heat.
Especially when they're out there playing, they're enjoying what they're doing. And so they may not be aware that they've had an excessive amount of sweating. And so they continue to play as opposed to stopping and taking those breaks.
There's also student athletes like members of the band. They need to drink more as well, at least 2 cups of water every 20 minutes.
Happening tomorrow, we're hosting a town hall focused on student mental health as we all head back to school in the coming days and weeks. Join us to talk to teachers, counselors, and mental health professionals. You can also check out some of my social media accounts. Let me know on Twitter or Instagram something you want to talk about. The live stream will be on all of our KSAT streaming platforms starting at 7 p.m. tomorrow.
A quick reminder to get your tickets for this year's KSAT Pigskin Classic. They are on sale right now. Scan this QR code to see all of your ticket options. Kicks off on the 25th of this month, followed by our triple header on the 26th. And of course, all of the games take place inside the Alamo Dome.
He served 14 months in prison for taking part in a bribery scheme, but it's a letter the former Development Services executive wrote after getting out of federal custody that has put his former employer now at odds with an elderly West Side couple. That 2021 letter listed potential code violations on their land. And while the city is not sure how it eventually made its way into the hands of Development Services officials, the information it contained has been used as the catalyst for a years-long code enforcement case.
It's apparent to all of us what's going on, that the city is being used to harass them.
In just a few minutes, city leaders defend their investigation at that property and address how much contact they've had with their disgraced former co-worker. It's a KSAT Investigates coming up.
Check out traffic right now. We're going to go to 410 and Fredericksburg, and you can see a couple of cars that are pulled off to the side. Looks like a minor fender bender or an accident. This is what you're required to do if you get into one of these minor accidents and both cars can move them off to the side and wait for police. Hoping that's what's happening here, and hoping all those people have water that are in those 2 vehicles as well, because you don't want to cross those lanes of traffic at this time of day.
No, at least a little bit of shade where they are there. Still ahead on the news at 6 here, food allergies can be a big concern for parents as their kids get ready to go back to school. After the break, details about a new treatment that could save lives.
Welcome back. I'm Stefania Jimenez, and here's what we're working on for you tonight on The Night Beat. A rude awakening. Imagine opening up your water bill and it says that you owe thousands of dollars. That's what happened to a couple. You're going to hear from them tonight and what San Antonio Water System said you should do if the same thing happens to you. Also, it's a popular downtown area church that's been serving the community for decades, but recently it's fallen on hard times because of vandalism. But there is something that you can do to help. See you for these stories and so much more tonight on The Night Beat.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, as school gets ready to start, parents who worry about their child's peanut allergy go on high alert.
Yeah, more than 5.5 million kids have a food allergy. That's about 1 in 13 children, or 1 in 2 kids in every single classroom.
Ursula Perry now with why treatment for preschool age kids is finally approved, which may save them from a school age emergency later.
If you can strum it, pound it, build it, or throw it, or even swing it, that's where you'll find 5-year-old Caleb Builder, not a care in the world. But it wasn't always like this.
When Caleb was 6 months old, he broke out into hives all over his chest, torso, face.
A skin test proved Caleb was allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, and eggs.
So how do we kind of live our lives and not be fearful all the time?
Pediatric allergist Brian Vickery says until now, there was very little they could do to help children like Caleb.
What we've been studying is to expose patients to small bits of what they're allergic to change their immune responses. And what's exciting is that you can actually do this through the skin.
It's called epicutaneous immunotherapy, or EPIT.
Peanut proteins are coated on the underside of a small patch that's about the size of a nickel or a quarter. And then immune cells in the skin are actually able to pick up the allergenic protein and deliver it to the immune system to give it instructions on how to respond to peanut allergen.
Children wear the patch for half an hour a day and then increase it until eventually it's worn 24/7.
This is not a cure. This does not reverse the allergy and make it go away completely. it just lessens the sensitivity levels.
They taste really good.
And here's the best part. Caleb doesn't need to use the patch any longer. He does eat 1 teaspoon of peanut butter every day, and he doesn't have an allergic reaction. Doctors think this is just the beginning. They are now studying patches for milk and egg allergies, and they think they will end up on the market in the next few years. Ursula Perry, KSAT 12 News.
Stepped outside this afternoon, a little bit of a breeze, but at this point it feels like a hairdryer.
Yeah.
You know, it's hot air moving around.
Yeah, it's a blast furnace.
Yeah, that's all it is. And the wind picks up every evening, by the way, and so we're going to feel that. We'll have some gusts to 30 miles per hour from roughly now through 11 p.m. So plan for that, especially if it's your watering day and you run your sprinklers. It's usually breezier in the evening than it is in the morning. So I suggest just running them in the morning instead, or hand water, and you can control it anyway. All right, let's take a look at our highs today across the state. We're all feeling the heat, triple digits for most of us. And right now in blue, I'm highlighting the record highs, either tied or broken. That includes Wichita Falls at 113, Abilene, San Angelo 108, Del Rio 109, Midland 105, Austin 108. You get the idea. Here in San Antonio 106. Tied the record for the day. Cotulla takes the cake, 111 for the high temperature. Going forward, it's more of the same, 106 Thursday and Friday. We get into Saturday, 105. Maybe we'll get as low as 104. That's our forecast. So just more of the same. And by the way, I was just texting with the weather team, and Justin Horn came up with a good stat that because we hit 106 today, it marks the longest streak we've ever had in San Antonio of 105 or warmer days. I mean, it's at 4. It's not a very long streak, but it's the longest we've had for that many consecutive days. 5 of the next 7 days, likely to be records, at least tie or break the record high temperature. We're looking for moisture. I wish we could drum some up. It's out there. It's just not here. It's in the midsection of the country, especially moving through Missouri. More severe weather this evening. Parts of Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas as well. And even into North Texas, they're getting a little bit of action. Upper level heat high. It's not as dominant overhead, but it's still persistent and influencing our weather. This is a good thing for Arizona and New Mexico. This is their monsoon season, where that high is in Mexico in particular. That wind around it pulls in some Pacific moisture and gives them some rainfall. Speaking of rainfall, here's the outlook and the potential over the next 7 days. And Texas, again, just being cheated out of the rain because of the big blue H, the dry high centered overhead. It's going to wiggle around overhead, but it's going to be influencing our weather and deflect all the rain and active weather around us. In turn, we still have the high fire danger, not just because of a lack of rain, but around here, this orange color, that's the high risk for San Antonio. It's an extreme risk. As you get farther to the north, especially along the Colorado River there, that's the worst category you can get, according to the A&M Forest Service, the fire risk. But even just up 281 north of San Antonio, it's in the very high category. So we have the dry grass, dry vegetation, low afternoon humidity, and breezy winds that pick up every afternoon and evening, adding to that fire potential and that risk. Notice how the relative humidity again tomorrow starts very sticky in the morning. Relative humidity is high, then it drops off into about 27, 28% later in the day. And we're at 25% for our relative humidity right now. 8 o'clock, 100 degrees. 10 o'clock, we're at 91. Breezy this evening. 106, the high temperature tomorrow afternoon. That would be a record by 1 degree. It's really just going to be more of the same in the days ahead. By the way, correction. Earlier I said it was our 43rd 100-degree day. It's our 44th today.
Oh, so glad.
You're welcome.
Gotta add one on there.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, Mary Rominger is in for Larry, who is on his way to the Basketball Hall of Fame, and for all good Spurs getting in there. But we're going to talk about high school football, because when you think about it, it's not that far away, Mary.
It is not that far away. In fact, it's this month. Can you believe it? And right after the break, we bring you inside of the Smithson Valley football team ahead of the high school football season. And it's the eve of the Texans' preseason debut. What head coach D'Amico Ryans wants from his rookies after the break.
every day you start to see it coming together, and guys are accepting the challenge, and other guys are not as well as the other ones. So it's something that's organic, and it happens day to day. But yeah, some guys are starting to step up and grab some spots.
UIW head coach Clint Killow seeing those position battles take shape. Best part of camp, it's time for Big Board Sports.
Football coverage brought to you by Davis Law Firm.
It's the eve of the Houston Texans' preseason debut against the New England Patriots. Now that we know quarterback C.J. Stroud will start for the Texans in tomorrow's game, head coach DeMeco Ryans wants his second-round overall pick and the rest of the rookies to trust their instincts and stick to the fundamentals.
I just want to see those guys not blink. I want to see them go out and continue to do what they've done in practice, not try to make too many big plays or try to put the team. It's just about them focusing on their craft and what they're doing. It's nothing. I want to see guys go out and not make it too big. I want to see that the game isn't too big for guys. I want to see guys go out and operate efficiently, guys fly around, have some fun playing the game.
Can't wait. Well, staying on the gridiron, the University of Incarnate Word, of course, trying to replicate another winning season that saw the Cardinals advance to the FCS semifinals last season. In doing so, head coach Clint Killow brought in Jim Gush as the program's new defensive coordinator.
Jim Gush has been in college football for 40 years. I mean, at one point in time, he was Bill Snyder's linebacker coach at Kansas State. You know, spent a lot of time at Baylor on some becoming a young man's game, but Jim Gush is thriving in it.
The defense have shown a ton of energy after 1 week of camp, and tomorrow the team kicks it up a notch with a scrimmage. Turning to our big game coverage previews, KSAT 12 Sports stopped by Ranger Country to catch up with the Smithson
Kids, how excited they are.
Oh, they're so excited.
Even in 105-degree heat.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mary.
All right, coming up next, KSAT investigates a land dispute involving the city and a couple on the west side. We'll explain next. A family says they're being unfairly targeted by San Antonio code enforcement officers.
Yeah, they've been repeatedly cited the past 2 years for not having concrete parking at their Westside 18-wheeler storage yard. This despite the city council approving zoning on this property more than a decade ago.
It's frustrating because the city, my parents and their attorney in 2011 had made an agreement with the city on how this land was going to be used.
San Antonio officials now contend they never agreed in writing to not allow paving.
A months-long probe by KSAT Investigates found the catalyst for this enforcement action. A letter written by a former city official who served time in federal prison for taking bribes. Dylan Collier investigates his ongoing relationship with the city.
Near the corner of Petranco and West Military, you'll find a strip of real estate used to store semi-trucks. Filiberto Gonzalez Jr.'s parents own the land. In 2011, City Council approved zoning that allows the elderly couple to live at the back of the property while continuing to store 18-wheelers as a commercial parking business in the front. But an arrangement that stowed tractor trailers, which might otherwise be parked along city streets, turned sour 2 years ago after code enforcement officers began to descend on the property. Development Services Director Michael Shannon explains what happened.
We responded to some information or call that there was a violation or potential violations there, and when we did, we checked the zoning and the certificate of occupancy, and that's a typical process when we get called out to a site.
But how did the city become aware of potential problems on a property with council-approved zoning? Turns out that is quite a tale.
This January 2021 letter lays out several claims. One, that a certificate of occupancy was issued by the city in error, that its parking area was not paved, and that flood concerns presented a, quote, life safety issue. KSAT Investigates confirmed the author of that letter was none other than Fernando de Leon, as in former San Antonio Assistant Development Services Director Fernando de Leon. who was fired by the city in 2010 as federal authorities investigated his role in a 5-year-long bribery scheme. De Leon teamed up with an employee of a local engineering firm to create a hoax company, submitted fake invoices, and inflated the cost to expedite permits, splitting the proceeds. A federal indictment says De Leon at one point forged his sister's signature on a check from the fake company for a down payment on a Mercedes-Benz. He pleaded guilty to a flurry of charges, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and mail fraud. In 2015, De Leon was sentenced to 14 months in federal prison in order to pay nearly $285,000 in restitution. His co-conspirator got 30 months in prison and was ordered to pay $315,000 in restitution. Now freed, De Leon goes by many titles, including code consultant and permit expediter. He spoke with us at the near West Side business he now operates about his past legal troubles.
It was a mistake. It was not done on purposely. You look at what happened in the city, and you're going to see a lot of stuff that, that was done. It was not done intentionally to do bad.
De Leon confirms he was hired to do background research on the Gonzalez property by this man, Michael Westheimer, listed as a partner on the website for Visenya, a mixed residential and business development that borders the Gonzalez family property.
Westheimer was the one that gave me and he said, do me a research, and did the research, gave it to him, and that was it.
Reached via telephone, Westheimer told KSAT De Leon's work was part of due diligence as the group was looking to buy the Gonzalez's land, eventually making multiple offers on the property as they believed early on Visenya needed to acquire it to help with drainage. Asked about the Gonzalez family, Westheimer told KSAT, quote, they thought they held the key to our development. They are nice people, but are unsophisticated. Gonzalez Jr. called Westheimer's comment upsetting and that De Leon's letter has now been weaponized against his parents. Westheimer was adamant that he did not share the letter with the city and has no idea how Development Services got it. Neither he or anyone associated with Visenya has been implicated in any professional misconduct or charged with any crimes in connection with the Gonzalez family property.
It's apparent to all of us what's going on, that the city is being used to harass them.
Shannon denied the accusation.
Who brought that to DSD's attention?
I don't know. I'm not sure who's who called it in. Or
he claimed Development Services followed its typical process after receiving information about possible violations that may have come in anonymously to the office of District 6 Councilwoman Melissa Cabello Haverda. After KSAT investigates pressed city officials about the source of the letter, we were told DSD does not know who provided it to the District 6 office. KSAT is not aware of any evidence demonstrating that Westheimer or Visenya were behind the transmission of the letter to the city. Internal records obtained by KSAT show 2 months after the letter was written, Shannon labeled a meeting to discuss the Gonzalez property high importance, referencing the letter that had been sent to District 6. The property had gone before council for zoning approval in 2011 without concrete being poured in the parking area, after the owners determined it was too expensive and would constantly need repairs. But as recently as last summer, city officials wrote there is no agreement on record that waives the paving requirement. Gonzalez called the timing of the city's decision to suddenly enforce code violations at the property troubling after so many years of apparently turning a blind eye.
The problems began because my parents didn't want to sell to the developer.
KSAT Investigates found since getting out of prison, De Leon has emailed with city planning and development services employees in regards to permits on at least 74 projects located all over San Antonio, meeting city staff at job sites, and according to internal records, even communicating directly with Shannon and Public Works Director Razi Husseini. Both leaders defended the thousands of pages of written communication between staff and the ousted city executive, claiming the city does not discriminate against people with criminal backgrounds when issuing permits.
I think our interaction with Mr. De Leon is similar to how we handle any applicant, any customer, is to help facilitate through our process to be successful.
De Leon is not a city contractor, according to Husseini, but instead runs a private consulting business that helps clients navigate city permitting issues.
As long as we are not giving them a contract, anybody can apply as long as they meet the requirement.
Gonzalez says the whole situation stinks.
So in essence, what you have is a former city employee, right, who got caught, for taking bribes, and he gets out of prison. Now he's back. Now he can operate, but now he still has his friends on the inside. I'm not trying to accuse anyone of anything, but that's something that needs to be looked at.
We could find no record that De Leon or anyone affiliated with One Stop Code Consulting has been implicated in professional misconduct or charged with any crime since De Leon's release from prison. For KSAT Investigates, I'm Dylan Collier.
Now, KSAT was on hand for the groundbreaking of Visenya back in the fall of 2019, but footage shows that development hasn't really progressed. Westheimer said it was always planned to be a long-term project. He said his group has moved on from trying to buy the Gonzalez's land, hired an engineer, and found a drainage solution without needing that property. An editorial note here, Mr. and Mrs. Gonzalez, the owners of that property, are related by marriage to a producer here at KSAT. We'll be right back.